So I want to welcome everyone who's here tonight to the Lunar Observance evening. And beautiful night here in Redwood Valley. Finally some warmth and open windows, air moving, very pleasant conditions. And it's just always a pleasure to be in a community where monastics and lay folk come together to practice Dhamma, reflect on the teachings, and just be with each other in a very harmonious, skillful way. Fairly rare in the world, so just taking a moment to reflect and appreciate that. Yesterday at tea time, there was a group of us talking about many different things. One of the topics that came up in a couple of different ways were some questions around concentration, the development of the meditation practice, teachings that people have heard that say that one really needs to develop a significant level of concentration before the insight practice can be of any significant benefit. And it wasn't explicitly stated in this way, but oftentimes what arises from that is the question of, how much concentration do I need to be able to develop insight? One hears that question quite a bit. And it's almost like, in my mind, as I've considered these things over the years, and this will be a repetitive refrain that many people have heard from me already, and you'll probably hear again in the future, but to keep on going with it. But it's like asking that question kind of almost sets you up for... It's a loaded question in a way, because it's operating from an understanding of concentration as a translation of the word samadhi that is taught a lot. This way of understanding concentration is taught a lot from traditional teachings, traditional teachers. In the Theravada tradition. And it has a connotation that has been developed and expanded on for, a couple of thousand years. And I think, without trying to sound disrespectful to any of the later traditions from where the teachings on samadhi, translated as concentration, come from, we've been missing something, and there's been kind of more attention being turned back to the original teachings of the Buddha for a bit more comprehensive, gentler understanding of the development of concentration as samadhi is translated. So I'm not going to harp on it too much because it's a very it can be kind of a confusing topic if one is really honed into how the teachings have been interpreted from later traditions and taught and presented, and with varying levels of success for some people, but just to kind of It keeps coming up, as I said last night. It keeps coming up, in the tea time, as I mentioned. It's obviously still something that's on people's minds. That quintessential question of how much concentration do I need to develop to be able to develop insight. So basically, I think my answer, it was a quick answer because we didn't have much time, but was more or less redirecting the question to what is samadhi? What is it that we are trying to develop? Because it's obviously a very important, it's the eighth of the Eightfold Path, samadhi. And just encouraging maybe a rethinking of how the word is used, how we translate it, how we consider it, and see the effects that it has in the heart and the mind. Because when I think of concentration, to me, again, I've said this again a number of times, you think of a very narrow focus that's trying to be quite exclusive, like, when you're a kid and you're trying to study in the classroom and your teacher, and you're distracted and you're kind of moving about fidgety and your mind is going all over the place about where you'd rather be than sitting at the desk looking at a book, and your teacher comes up to you and says, you need to concentrate more. So there's that kind of rigid pulling together, okay, focus, right here on this book. And a kind of a tight feeling comes up from that. And then also another way that the word concentration is used, say like in a cleaning solution or a chemical or something like that, where you buy the concentrated version of it. And what that generally means is that they've managed to somehow stuff more of the essential ingredient into a smaller bottle, into a smaller space. This is concentrated solution. And if you kind of bring that kind of connotation to meditation practice, you find yourself trying to stuff a whole lot more of something into a small space. And sometimes that's the way, honestly, sometimes that's the way it's kind of presented, that you have this very narrow focus on a very small point, a small tip, and you don't waver from it. And when you do, you pull yourself back to it and try and hold it very steady, very intentionally, exclusively, not paying attention to anything else, not being aware of anything else. And so it becomes a very small, narrow focus, say on a particular part of the body, the nose, the abdomen, whatever it is that's being taught, as a way of shutting out a lot of experience that seems to be distracting from the single object. So this is a lot of times what we bring into our practice and saying, okay, well, how much of that do I need so that I can then, see things the way they truly are with insight? And I think it's just so much better to redefine what it is that we think samadhi really is. And because so many of us, including myself, have tried this other approach, not with a whole lot of success, and maybe sometimes quite a bit of frustration and tightness. And it's just not a very pleasurable experience. Some people are able to do that, kind of intense focus and kind of suppression of input from the world around us, including the contents of our own mind, thinking mind. And when one is able to do that, one can develop a very blissful state of mind and maintain it for some periods of time. And then when the conditions change and one isn't able to sit in that quiet, still, quiet, isolated place and comes out of that form of concentration, then the underlying defilements are still there, ready to spring up and take over once again. So maybe a reconsideration is useful for some. I found it to be so. And to consider the teachings that talk about mindfulness, and then also samatha and vipassana. Sometimes samatha, settling the mind, calming the mind, is conflated with the term samadhi, so that we develop samatha, calm meditation, as it's described, in order to achieve samadhi, concentration, and that we develop mindfulness as a practice, sati, in order to achieve insight, or to gain insight. And so that's often a classical way that it's presented. But my current understanding is that what seems to be more appropriate to what the Buddha's teaching is that we develop the four foundations, or the four establishings of mindfulness, samasati, and that the development of these foundational qualities of mindfulness of the body, of feelings, of the mind, and certain dhammas, experiences, the development of these fully results in both samatha and vipassana, calmness and insight, calm and insight through the development of the satipatthana, the foundations of mindfulness. And then with the development of a settled and clear mind, kind of conjointly, in tandem with each other, then the result of that is a growing stability of mind, a firm establishing of the mind, a composing, a collectedness, a pulling together of the mind that has fewer and fewer obstructions and fewer hindrances, like the 5 hindrances, resulting from the mindfulness practice that results in calm and insight. And then as the mind settles and clears, but is still very alert and present to the phenomena that come in through the sense bases, and the intellect especially as well, that this is what we call samadhi. So it's the result of mindfulness, development of samatha vipassana. Samadhi is the result of that. And it's very aware, it's very open, it's very broad, it's not shut off, it's not exclusive, it's very inclusive. And it is very peaceful, it's very settled, not because of excluding all sorts of other input, but because the mind is naturally opening and relaxing itself from the influence of the obstructions that are there through having conditioned the mind with greed, hatred, delusion, and all of its manifestations, particularly, say, in terms of the 5 hindrances. So samadhi it's a result of this consideration, this mindfulness practice. And it's accompanied by a gradual decrease in the lessening of those forces that obstruct the mind, that obstruct us from experiencing this peaceful openness, the fading of the hindrances. So if we consider this approach and the fact that samadhi can be re-experienced, redefined in this more broad, open, still very aware, very clear, very alert state of mind, that, by the way, can be experienced in any posture. Right samadhi, it's described in the teachings, in the suttas, as being experienceable not only just in the sitting posture, but while standing, walking, and lying down in all 4 postures. So if we consider it as that, then we see that the object of our practice also needs to include, in particularly primarily include a lessening, an abandonment of those obstructions, of those hindrances that keep us from experiencing that state of clarity and peace and alertness. Presence. Because the result of that, that presence of mind that we call samadhi, is able to clearly see that which really obstructs us from realizing a very, very profound form of liberation. That mind that is in samadhi, in this clear, alert state, is able to see very clearly the arising and ceasing of all of our experience right in the moment. And this has been the answer that some of the Thai Kruba Ajahns have used to describe how much concentration, quote unquote, do you need? And it's basically enough to see the arising and ceasing of phenomena. So even if we, whether we call it concentration or collectedness or composure, that's one of the aspects of having that clarity and stillness and peacefulness, is to be able to see arising and ceasing. And also to be able to see when defiled states of mind do arise, how, if it's something that that we really crave, a craving comes up in our hearts, our minds, and we run after it, then if our mind is much more collected and settled, then we see the pain of clinging, the pain of craving, the pain of clinging, of holding on. And if we see that from the mind of samadhi, then we're much more likely to let it go, to relinquish it. And with a clear mind, gathered together in samadhi, then we also see the release, the freedom, the peace with this relinquishment. So it becomes a really important state of mind to spend a lot of time in and dwell in all aspects of our daily life, in order to let go of the obstructions that keep us from seeing clearly, and to get that sense of disenchantment with the world around us, in terms of the ways that we constantly seek gratification and then try to avoid pain. So this is the benefit of samadhi. One of the as I was saying, one of the primary tasks that we need to do is to learn how to abandon these obstructive mind states, to provide that space, to clear the space. And one of the qualities that the Buddha mentions as extremely important is the Pali word appamada, often translated as heedfulness or circumspection. And there's a Dhammapada verse that's very wonderful that talks about appamada, heedfulness, in that it's the heedfulness is the path to the deathless. Heedlessness is the path to death. The heedful never die. The heedless are as if dead already. So that's a very powerful statement about the quality of appamada. And just to kind of think about that one for a minute, particularly that third line, the heedful never die, doesn't mean that like this physical body and this mind, don't pass away based on causes, the natural cycles of things, but more, and that the heedless are as if dead already. Those two lines, the heedful never die, means that in a sense, suffering is never brought into existence in one who is truly heedful. It just doesn't arise. So the birth into suffering doesn't happen. So consequently, one doesn't have to die. If one isn't born into the world of suffering, then one doesn't die. So that heedfulness, the heedful never die. And the heedless are as if dead already, meaning that one who is heedless and not heedful is just like the living dead, completely unaware of all the suffering that they bring into their lives, the unsatisfactoriness that they experience through just ignorance, through not knowing what they're doing. So that underscores, I think, the importance that the Buddha puts on appamada as a quality, heedfulness. And it also refers to being heedful of this precious, rare opportunity we have as human beings to really understand and experience and develop this path, and to take full advantage of it, be heedful. Buddha's famous last words, to be heedful, strive on with heedfulness. Because all things that have the nature to arise have the nature to cease. A couple other qualities that go along with how to be aware, developing this heedfulness, to be able to abandon unwholesome, unskillful mind states that obstruct us, are the qualities of hiri and ottappa, sometimes translated as kind of like moral shame, or shame and moral dread, which are very kind of strong negative words in the English language, more maybe friendly words of like conscience and concern. Conscience, when the arising of conscience when we do something that's painful or harmful, the feeling of that, the experience of that sense of, kind of a wholesome shame, and the wish not to do it more, the wish not to engage in things that are harmful to people, being more that concern, particularly concern for others. So they're called the guardians of the world, and combined with heedfulness, those three qualities naturally will result in us wanting to hold back from harmful activity, to restrain ourselves from harmful activity in body, speech, and also eventually the mind itself. So these are our protectors and our guardians, and we need to be alert so that we don't just keep causing ourselves more obstructions. And when we develop that sense of alertness and that heedfulness, these qualities that result in restraining ourselves from doing harm, body and speech especially, we learn how to become more responsive to the world around us rather than reactive. And I think that's an important distinction, because when we're confused and under the sway of craving and aversion and fear and anxiety and delusion, restlessness, when we're under the influence of these qualities, we tend to be more reactive. But with clarity and heedfulness, we can be more responsive in a skillful way. So, the reactive side of us, like in speech, it's so easy. It's like somebody comes and says something that's unpleasant or criticizes you, then the reactive response is some sort of quick, snarky comment, just the snappy rejoinder that you unload on somebody. That's the reactive response. But the more responsible response that's with clarity and heedfulness will be one that helps to diffuse a situation rather than complicate it. Responsibility, I like to think of the word responsibility as just turning it on itself and say it's really actually the ability to respond, the ability to respond skillfully. So with appamada, heedfulness, and hiriyanotapa, we are able to see more clearly with less reactivity and reduce those obstructive states of mind. And with the elimination of these, particularly in the way that teachings are presented, the elimination of the 5 hindrances, that is the basis for Samma Samadhi. So that we're not concentrating on an object in the practice, but we are allowing collectedness to unfold, composure to open and develop based on this settling of the mind and clear seeing, the samatha and vipassana, that opens up our mind to clarity and relinquishment of the obstructions. And this samadhi is the natural result of that. So if you're one of the ones, of some of us anyway, who have kind of struggled with that whole notion of, how much concentration do I need to develop insight? If we kind of redefine the words and how we use them, then the answer just becomes clearer. Yes, of course, we need to have a peaceful, clear, alert state of mind that's unwavering in its observation of phenomena and its observation of how we create unsatisfactoriness and difficulty in our lives. And we need that kind of clarity and insight together with the settledness of mind to be able to sustain a form of broad, open attention, because the underlying states of mind that keep us obstructed just are very firmly embedded and will keep arising in all sorts of sneaky ways if we're not attentive. So this is the practice. This is what we are developing. This open, clear alertness and settledness to be able to catch ourselves before we get fooled and overwhelmed. And it's a gradual process. It doesn't happen quickly all at once. And it's just a matter of patience. We also need to develop skillful qualities to help support all of this. And patience is one of them. And taking the long-term approach, that this will unfold in its own way. But we have to use our heedfulness to keep us focused, to keep us on the path. And appreciating the benefits as they come in slow and little ways, the moments of release, the moments of letting go, that reinforce that, okay, there is a path that works, even if we haven't made it all the way, and it seems like it's kind of a long haul. that we can be buoyed up and inspired by the small insights that we do have, the moments of letting go, the moments of relinquishment and peace that we can experience, and to let those inspire us and pull us on, and then seeing the results and the fruits and the benefits of this kind of practice over the long haul, from getting to know some of our teachers and traditions that have come from the Buddha's teachings, and how they've sustained and maintained this possibility for so many thousands of years, and that the possibility is still there, and we just need to take advantage of it. So I'll leave that for reflection for tonight.